Good evening, everyone, and welcome in. We're going to give just a moment for folks to arrive in our space. You are here at the Restorative Action Alliance webinar for May, and it is Pathways to Healing, Exploring the Needs of Sexual Harm Survivors. Just give a few moments. I'll do a little bit of housekeeping. Just as a point of note, you may go to the bottom of your screen. If you require closed captioning, you can turn that on. If you're on a computer, you can find that at the bottom of your screen. If you're on an iPad or you are on a phone, if you tap the screen anywhere, the controls will pop up at the bottom. And again, you can go ahead and turn on those closed captions if you are in need of that. We are, again, going to get started in just one moment. Give people some time to arrive. And again, you are at the Restorative Action Alliance, Pathways to Healing, Exploring the Needs of Sexual Harm Survivors. This is a webinar format, and we will be taking questions and answers. The Q&A is also located at the bottom of your screen, and you can click that if you have questions for our panelists once we get started. All right, we're going to go ahead and move ahead. And again, my name is Amber Valangas. I am the Executive Director of Restorative Action Alliance, and we appreciate you being here with us this evening. We've got a great conversation on healing, justice, and how we can better support survivors of sexual harm. So this webinar is going to feature two courageous survivors, and also our moderator is a survivor, and they're going to share personal experiences and insights about what survivors truly need to heal and rebuild their lives. And this is hosted by Restorative Action Alliance. We are an organization that is dedicated to ending cycles of sexual violence without the use of carceral approaches. And that is things like the prison industrial complex and post-conviction registries. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our wonderful moderator, who is Dr. Brashani Reese. And Dr. Brashani is the executive director of Drop LWOC New England, and she is a survivor of attempted murder. Her path to advocacy began when she realized the legal system's focus on permanent punishment offered no path to her own healing, leading her to seek a justice rooted in the belief that redemption is always possible. Dr. Reese holds a doctorate in forensic psychology, specializing in violence, dangerousness, and the developmental needs of child and emerging adult populations. She is a certified restorative justice facilitator. She has spent over 12 years working within carceral systems and witnessing the transformative power of accountability firsthand. Dr. Reese brings a unique combination of academic depth and lived experience to the movement, working alongside her husband, Steve Quinlan, who is currently serving life without parole sentence. Her work is dedicated to proving that healing and extreme sentencing are fundamentally at odds, and that true safety is found in transformation, not disposal. In addition to all of those things, Brashani is a great friend, and I'm so excited that you are here this evening to be part of our program. So, Brashani, take it away.
Thank you so much, Amber. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, and it's truly my pleasure to be here tonight. I am super excited to introduce to you our two wonderful guests. Our first guest that I'm going to introduce is Jacqueline Miller. Jacqueline is the founder and president of Healthy Actions Intervening Responsibility, the acronym is HARE, a trauma-informed initiative transforming how communities respond to childhood trauma. An internationally recognized advocate and survivor, Jacqueline brings over 30 years of experience in violence prevention and empowerment. She is also a multi-hyphenate artist who creates healing-centered art for survivors of childhood sexual trauma, honoring resilience and offering hope. A recent recipient of an honorary doctorate in humanities, she is recognized for her contributions to creative scholarship and community-centered healing and wellness. I have a quote from Jacqueline. As a practitioner of the sixth principle of Kwanzaa Kuumba, it is a delight to make my community more beautiful than I inherited it. This is a gift to Mother Earth and oncoming generations. Welcome to the conversation tonight, Jacqueline. We're truly, truly honored to have you here with us. Okay. And our second panelist, I have Ben Johnson. Ben is a writer, performer, and former union leader with a deep commitment to storytelling and advocacy. Raised in the aftermath of the Oklahoma Dust Bowl, his journey has taken him from conservative evangelical roots to becoming a prominent voice in labor organizing and the arts. As the former president of AFTA Vermont and the Vermont AFL-CIO, lots of acronyms, alphabet soup, Ben has led significant campaigns, including organizing early childhood educators. His acclaimed memoir, called Fury and Grace, explores themes of addiction and resilience, while Finding the Pearl in the Storm adapts classic strategies for modern union efforts. Ben is also the founder of the blog, Ben, you're going to have to introduce your blog for me, and a YouTube channel titled The Pilgrim's Progress. His one-man show,
Hoanthropos.
sorry, say that again.
Hoanthropos.
Hoanthropos.com.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, I should thank you very much for that. His one-man show called My Testimony, Fury and Grace debuted in 2024, captivating audiences with its revival-style format. With degrees in philosophy from Boston University and library and information studies from the University of Oklahoma, Ben blends insight and inspiration in his work. Both of you, welcome to this very important conversation. We are so honored to have you. Now that I've done the more formal introduction, I'm wondering if we can kick off this conversation with whatever you would feel comfortable sharing about your survivor story and what brings you to this particular pathway for tonight's conversation. Maybe I can start with you, Jacqueline.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate this opportunity. And I am thrilled to be part of this powerful moment and conversation. And I think I like to offer in this right now that really does help to ground me. And it's a piece that I wrote already in the red. Before anyone asks, why didn't you call? My body had already called long before a courthouse, before concrete steps, before iron eagles on the wall and flags staring downward. But before blue lights spun their warnings across the night, I was already in the red. Red like emergency rooms, red like charts and urgency, red like asthma breaths counted in whispers, red like sterile hallways, medicine carts, needles, masks, and triage histories, red like systems saying something is wrong, something needs intervention, something requires immediate attention. I knew red, the smell of hospitals, a new ceiling, from my bed laying flat beneath me. I knew machines before I knew rest and uninterrupted sleep. So when people say, why didn't you report it? I wonder if they understand. To me, emergency already lived nearby. I was already carrying alarms and carrying systems and already carrying survival, trying to breathe. And the courthouse, it was red in my mind. I never saw justice colored gold. It was another shade of red, the shade with consequences, the shade that does not reduce danger, with shades of red that what people warned me about, a place where life could become more complicated than before you even it. Metal detectors, silence heavy enough to sit on your shoulders, stoic faces trained not to flinch, words captured precisely while hearts were expected to stand still. People say call for help as if all help feels the same. But what if the child understands designs and sleep and lives in emergency rooms where art emerges, joy emerges, creativity emerges? It's clear what emerges. Agencies did not have space for the emergency rooms I built. What if red wasn't a warning light arriving, but a place they never got to leave? That is what I have been trying to say. It wasn't refusal of care. Listen at what I have to say. Every road offered looked like another version of crisis, another room, another alarm, another place where my body had to brace itself. I was already in the red. And here it is, years later. I draw floor plans, design rooms, redesign memory. Inside me, a child still believes. Emergency cannot be the only color of care. And maybe healing begins when someone finally asks, if you could design another room, another system, another way, what color would safety be? Thank you for having me.
Wow. I'm I'm taking notes because that was incredible. Jacqueline, can I, before we go to Ben, I'm just struck by there was a very particular point right off the early part of that poem that stood out to me, and I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about at what point in your journey did you learn to get connected to your nervous system and your body to be able to even express any of this?
The point that I was able to get connected to my nervous system was really due to my childhood chronic asthma, where I was constantly contending with moments where I couldn't breathe. And that is what I clearly know now that contributed to my vulnerability, and me being in places where I was isolated. And I think I want to say this too, when I really learned about my nervous system, is I didn't have one single person that harmed me. And I'll talk about this more later. I had 13. And there was a demand on my life to learn more about, in terms of survival, what my nervous system was doing and what was actually happening, that put that demand to understand the multiple things that was happening within my body in various states of being.
Thank you. That makes so much sense. I appreciate that. And thank you again for that beautiful piece of wonderful. I'm going to say poem, but I felt it deeper than that. So thank you. It was incredible. Ben, I'd love to turn to you for the next part of our conversation. If you don't mind sharing with the audience what part of your survivor story has brought you here to us tonight, or what part would you be willing to share with everyone?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll accept. Very happy to be here, and thank you. Very happy for everything except the fact that I've got to follow that with just my rambling like things that I have to say. I don't have any poetical works to do. And then thank you so much, Jacqueline, for bringing that. I appreciate that. It was beautiful. Um, I'm Ben Johnson. I live in Vermont now. I lived in Vermont for 20 years, but the fact that I'm grew up in Oklahoma is not is, is related because I live in northern New England now. I suspect all y'all are New Englanders. So a little bit of a, not as visceral to people that don't live in the area, but the shadow of the Dust Bowl is a looked at my people, my like where I come from, through a lens of generational trauma, Oklahoma and my specific family. I have an aunt who's in LDS. She's in the Mormon church. She's done a lot of genealogy for my family. My family were Confederate soldiers from Alabama and Tennessee. My mother's side, her family been in the country for a long time. I'm in possession of a will from someone who has the last name as my mother. I do not know if they're actually related. The will is from a long time ago, but it bequeaths slaves by name to her, to the children, It's quite a thing to have, but that's that's where my folks came from. They migrated away from the out of the South over toward Texas and then up into Oklahoma. And then Oklahoma is not a place to try to make a living off the land. I mean, Comanche had it figured out. Those are people been living there for a long time. It's hard to make a living off cotton and wheat there. And then there was a drought, a famine with
Right.
starving people and dying people. And that was my grandmother. I mean, my grandmother was my grandparents were Dust Bowl survivors, and they were absolutely stamped with the brutality of the world that they grew up in. And my, as I understand it, uh, we kind of we grow up to reflect the kind of war zone we grew up in, and they grew up in a famine war zone, and it was just harsh. They were harsh, rough people, and my mother came from a similar background. I say all that to say that a phrase like complex PTSD, is raised by traumatized children that never had nothing. Born again Christianity is a folk religion. It offers a place to go. Anyone can be saved, no matter what you are, no matter what happened to you. Anyone can find God. That was the world it kind of came up in. To get more directly, to your point, it will maybe come back to this when we talk about other topics, but uh, I'll be comically circumspect. I'm a child sex abuse survivor. I was caused harm by an immediate family member. I'm an only child. I was caused harm by a woman, immediate family member, and then not a sibling, of which I have none. Beyond that, in this context, I say much more because it's not clear what implications I might be unleashing in some kind of way, just to kind of put a pin in that. In my little cul-de-sac, child sex abuse survivors, immediate family member, abuser, in the world of parent abusers, opposite sex parent, incest. For I know enough fellow people that describes now to know that for most of us, it was a long, long time to realize exactly what all was going on. For some of us, for some, I would say, abuse comes in the form of unboundaried caregiving, which is a phrase I read in the academic literature. I'm a college librarian by training. But I would not have recognized. I knew what my reality was, but when you've got a maternal organism who lives with BPD and NPD, and was herself caused a lot of harm, and I was a defenseless male human being in rural Oklahoma.
Yeah.
There's no before time, so as a child there's no before. You don't know have anything to compare it to. You don't know what a peaceful mind is or anything else. So I was been bulimic since I was a young child, binge eating and bulimic. 378 is the biggest number I ever saw on a scale, and it's only optimism that lets me hope that that was actually the most I ever weighed. The binge eating, and then as soon as I could put other substances in me, I crammed them in me. But I'm a very good masker, and school was the only thing I was ever any good at. And I dissociated from everything in the world, and right in here. If this was the only way I could prove my worth, I could make other people feel as bad as I could because I was a chubby kid, and it was not easy in Oklahoma in the 70s and 80s. Teachers would make fun of you. Um, so I was shot out of a cannon. I had enough various kinds of trauma. My father, it was kind of self-defense, the whole kind of home invasion thing. He killed a family friend in our living room. There was a lot of kind of constant Gen X working class trauma all the time. There's just a lot of traumatic stuff going on. I was just shot out of a cannon. My life fell apart in a variety of ways. And I finally came to realize that if I didn't admit to myself what I knew my relationship with my abuser had been, I was just going to go to my grave a mess. And that got me to Hidden Water, the organization that does healing circles facilitated by and for child sex abuse survivors. And that I've been keeping circles there, green circles, for the last 3 or 4 years, and it's been utterly transformative. Never in my life have I had I sit there with 8 boxes on the Zoom screen. We share our stories, we talk. Mm, utterly transformative. Every circle I've done. Uh, First time in my life I felt the human connection because there are other child sex abuse survivors there. And I said, all kinds of things I've never said before, things I thought like this is so exclusively about being a man or that these, there's six other women, two men, six women in the circle. They won't be able to relate, or maybe they'll just kind of be on my side, and they probably don't want me here anyway because I'm a dude, and I don't like that. All these things in my head. Everything I shared, I saw nodding heads, and it was the same experience. They could relate directly with what I was talking about. That was transformative. That got so I've been sticking with hidden water, and that one thing led to another, and that's how I've ended up here. And I should have started myself a timer because I feel like I'm going on for too long, but I'll hand you back the microphone and hope that maybe I responded to your question.
Thank you, Ben. Fellow yapper here, so don't know, it's all good. But so Ben, I noticed that your mention of eating disorders, and I'll call back to Jacqueline's mention of asthma, and just sort of have that poem that Jacqueline read for us sort of reverberating in the background, that our bodies know something isn't right. We know something isn't right. We know something is happening, even if we can't articulate it. Jacqueline, since Ben brought up the topic of intergenerational trauma as a part of his survivorship story, I wanted to offer you an opportunity to add any additional layers to your survivor story. And if not, we can move on, but I wanted to check in.
Yeah, thank you. So actually, I put together like images that give some context and visuals to what I mean by I was already in the red, and I think I'll do that now. So I through Hidden Water, I am to a circle keeper, a green circle keeper, and it has been the tool or the place, the space that has really brought forth and allowed me to be on this healing journey that I get to pace it, I get to determine it, I get to discover many things of it, and it has been the main tool for me, and I will continue with Circle. So I put together this, and we talk about like red, the colors, right? And then red means extreme, like danger or not safe. And so I went back to my childhood and I wanted to make my house again. And I wanted to color the rooms that were red. I wanted to color the rooms where there was green, where I felt a sense of safety. And you see here, there was only one spot, and that's where mom was. That's where mom was. And those other spaces, I labeled them. The kitchen was not a safe place. The bathroom was not a safe place. The living room was not a safe place. And my bedroom was not a safe place. And how I've labeled this is how, in the midst of the red, I was where art, creativity, and joy emerged despite being in the red. And that is what kept me hopeful and gave me a lot of hope. Whereas I didn't feel that I would get any of that if we had have entered into the criminal justice system, or if a call had been made. I know for sure there is nothing and no one that cannot tell me I would not have been removed from my mother. And that is something I would not have survived it. I would not have survived being without my caregiver, my compassionate, loving caregiver. There's no way. So this gives some context, and there are more I'll show later, but this gives that picture. I was already in the red. And you'll see in a little bit where going into the criminal justice system would have taken me deeper into the red.
Thank you,
Thank
Jacqueline. That's perfect. So, Ben, I would love to just pick up where you left off about transformative, how transformative Hidden Water has been for you. So maybe we can start there about your healing journey. And I'd love for you to add on if there was anything unhelpful, such as like a foray, or maybe it was helpful for you. If you had any interactions with the carceral system and the criminal justice system, in addition to this transformative experience of Hidden Water, would you share about those, please?
I yes, I myself have not. I have not I have not interacted with the carceral system, coming from a working class family avoidance of anything that looked like the state or anything, it would have been high on the list. And I wouldn't have known. It just didn't, I've done plenty of antisocial addict related behavior myself, but whether for good or ill, I often wonder what might have happened if I'd ever got in a little bit of trouble, say 30 years ago, and somebody might have been able to do something to say, to do something. I might have had some adult who wasn't one of my parents talk to me for 20. That's the only thing I say now. And everything I've ever heard about people's interaction with the carceral system says that's maybe, good luck, but I don't know. Was that a
Yeah, that,
response to you at all?
no, it is. And I'll pivot to Jacqueline now, actually, since we're on the carceral system. Jacqueline, would you mind sharing about when you say, if I had gone deeper into that system, and there's a sense of dread I hear in your voice, will you share with us about what you anticipated would have happened?
Yeah, so had I gone into something about how I know I was as a child. I was very spiritually attuned. I was very like deeply attuned, very ancestral attuned, like so very deeply, to the point that um, yeah, I just had this internal knowing, and within my community, there had been like things shared when someone was going to court or someone was in trouble or someone was like all those things of what that looks like systemic wise. And it's like I could feel it in my body what would happen. I could know that. And it's not until like decades later that there's a lot of confirmation from that, from what I've learned and heard from others. And so, yeah, going deeper would have meant being removed from my mom, or potentially those who harm me having visitation rights, and deeper manipulation could happen there. Um, and whereas it would have been more like um, describing, I think sometimes I thought about it from a child lens and perspective, is someone being mean. So I think I would have framed it as they're just being mean today. They're just having a bad day. And so then I think about that lens, but then I think about and reflect on my imagination based on what I heard others saying. So it's like, oh no, it's not that bad. No. And like, is it bad enough to have to deal with this system that you won't get out of? Is it bad enough to have case after case, or continue? And now, and the way I see it is that there's so much that seems to be concerned about Black children, Black girls, but there's so much discrepancy and there's so much contradiction. Like, no, because when I think about resources that's not in my community that could create more safe spaces for Black girls, it doesn't exist. But you're concerned about the safety of Black girls? No, that doesn't match. So much mixed messages and discrepancy. So my thought was, well, I'm already in the red. I'm already overwhelmed. I'm already burdened. Let's not add stress to myself or my family. I don't want to have to testify and say anything, because then there'll be more discrediting me
Right.
and dismissing my humanity.
Absolutely. So well said. Thank you, Jacqueline. Let's turn to the things that have worked, because I can't wait to share tools, resources, and sort of what your healing journey has looked like. So maybe we could start with you, Ben, and talking about hidden water and circles. Maybe you could give a little bit of context for people who aren't familiar with what that organization was, what circles look like, and then how you found it beneficial.
Yeah, thank you. The so Hidden Water Circle is a 501(c)(3) not-for-profit organization that facilitates healing circles that are run by and for those affected by child sex abuse. The circles last 12 weeks. There's a round 8 participants, usually 2 circle keepers, which is what I do there. All the keepers are volunteers. There are green circles, which is what I do for those who were for child sex abuse survivors. There are blue circles for, I'm a green circle, so sometimes I forget the other one. There are blue circles for family members and loved ones of those affected by child sex abuse. And there are orange circles for non-offending parents, and there are purple circles for those who have caused harm to a child and are ready to make to I mean, take accountability and make amends. And so that's hidden water. It was recommended to me, and there's no advertising. It's like word of mouth, you know. Um, it's not for everyone, but for people who are at a level where they kind of someone recommends it to them and they get on the waiting list. I, 8 people in a circle. Uh, there's a big chunk of those that generally every circle I've been into that I can tell has been transformative for them as well. And for the others, the circle happened. They went to the circle, they had that experience. We do not know what happens in the future, but we do know that they had that experience and they had the experience of, and my apologies to those watching. I do live in northern New England, but it happens to be sweltering here today, and I
I
sweat
can
like a
vouch for
pig.
that.
So sorry about that. So that's just been, it's utterly transformative. It was recommended to me by a coach I was working with. She said, Ben, have you ever thought of pursuing healing? Because it's a real mess, you know? And no, I hadn't. Healing? What? The I'll hand the microphone back after I just let me say 2 words about the 3 stages that healing water. We have a model for the path toward healing from harm. The first phase is what I call my phrase, you're lost in the sea of suffering. Your life is dominated by coping skills. This is you me I mean people prostitute themselves, they abuse their bodies with drugs and kill themselves trying to make partner, trying to make $2 billion because one's not enough. Whatever the coping skills are, you're just lost in it. And then you wash up on the island of facing where, you face what's happened to you and the reality of it. And this comes a lot of anger, often. Anger, the
Yeah.
quest for revenge. We got to do something to somebody, what, all that. And then releasing and letting go. And this is what I call what we're going on the trail to the Western lands, um, where you move on with your life. That's kind of the model that they have. So I'll hand it back. I'll take the microphone and say if I actually answered your question.
No, you did. Thank you so much for sharing that. Because what we're doing here is these conversations are for many people, they're brand new because somebody does something wrong, you call the police. You
Yeah.
know, um, the carceral system is just the natural American default. And so what we're doing here tonight is really talking about the mechanisms and your personal experiences with these things. So the mechanisms are so important to walk people through when they're thinking, okay, where am I at in that model? Would I be able to sit in a space like that? And wow, these people found healing. Wow, that sounds really like a lot of peace. Like what, many of us are searching for after we have survived. Many of us are searching for just the ability to sleep through the night, which I believe, Jacqueline, your poem mentioned. So Jacqueline, I'd love to hear from you about the start of it doesn't have to be the start, but your healing journey. What would you like to share? It can be the beginning or pick up where it leaves off.
Thank you. So, my beginning, actually, I have for a long time have been thinking about my experience, my childhood, a sexual experience that never left me. It's always been something that I've thought about and was curious about, like, how do I, or is there healing, or if, how do you do that? Like, and I tried therapists and all before, and they didn't work for me. That didn't work for me at all. So I went on this journey of a rites of passage. I really wanted to just learn and know more about me, my identity, where am I from, and just like my culture. I wanted to learn more about that as I was in this thought process of healing and what that means and becoming whole. Maybe that's more my word. I wanted to become whole. With my CSA experience, certainly I felt like the violation took some parts of me. I wasn't given a choice. So I really wanted to reclaim me. I wanted to reclaim my body. I wanted to reclaim my life. And so after my rites of passage journey that really took me deep in some really sweet, deep waters, um, that was like for a year and a half. And I then said, okay, what now? What next? There's more for me. And I learned about circle keeping amongst my people and the process of sitting in circle and the circle like of accountability. I learned about that. And I was like, I want to be a circle keeper. And I went out searching, like really um, looking for that. And I'm just so proud of myself that I can find a gold mine. And I felt like I did. Finding hidden water was like a gold mine for me. And so I came across one place that was talking about circle keeping training. They never responded back to me. And I didn't give up and I kept going. And I found hidden water up and I saw that there's a long waiting list. And I like the fact, it's kind of probably going to seem interesting. I like the fact there's a waiting list because I'm like, man, people are trying to get in there. People, this is a really good thing. It's a thing. I want to try it. And when I got the email that says, welcome to the green circle, that I was like, I hit a gold mine. And I didn't quite know, yeah, I didn't quite know what to expect. I had not been experienced that or set in a circle. And oh my. The rest is history on that. And yes, it's become a tool for me. And it's like there's no option, there's no other place for me to go. There's no other option because I get to go into the waters and the places like Ben mentioned earlier, the path to healing from harm, the coping. And I was like, this is why I can understand more about like the things I'd have been experiencing, and just doing a lot of deeper healing work within myself. And so here I am, and I will continue. Like there's no other way. And I did say this. I said, and I imagined what would happen if everyone sits in circle? What if that is like, okay, we want everyone to sit in at least 3 circles a year, regardless of what, but coming like to listen, like the purpose to listening.
Yeah.
And I think y'all, the last thing I'll say, my most challenging part of it was the fact that I get to speak and share without interruption, without judgment, without interrogation, without questioning me, without like with not validating me. And so that was really challenging and tough because I felt, I don't know if this really happened. I don't know if this was really CSA. Well, maybe I misunderstood and all those things. So to sit in your own power, the power of your voice, and to be witnessed, what a precious gift and a gold mine to hidden water that they offer.
Ah, so beautiful. I'm feeling it. I love the circles too. I I am noticing with the two of you also that there's this cultural overlay that I think in America we detach from um, our ancestors, from practices that like are more based out of native practices, even our ancestral practices. Like I'm from the Celts. I can tell you that they didn't have prison, when the Celtic times were happening, right? So I want to bring that forward just to say that, the reclaiming of me, the reclaiming of you, Jacqueline, that you talked about, Ben, your journey, it involves, I do really believe, a reclaiming of identity and all aspects of identity, without rejection of the self. So, for everyone who is on here and maybe now getting curious about circles, there is something that I hear over and over and over that I'd love to ask the two of you to address. For those in our culture who are used to a carceral system, the first thing that they say to me in response to a restorative justice practice is, that's too soft. How is that actually holding somebody accountable? So, Ben, I'd love to turn to you first and get a sense of, when you're describing this to people, what about the other person or the people involved? And, the justice system is promising that they're going to be taken care of, right? That there's going to be some revenge, some punishment, some accountability, as they call it, from their side. But what's your sense of that? And what would you say to somebody who calls our circles soft?
Um, would the restorative part of restorative justice was a big hurdle for me to get over to signing up, Uh, although I was very extremely vexed for the 9 months I had to wait, Jacqueline. I'm really impressed with your good attitude. I was just annoyed, but I was annoyed by everything at the time. You have to wait 9 months to go to my circle. The restorative justice part was it directly related to what you're talking about, and it was really hard for me because I thought like it sounds like I'm signing up to hear all about someone else's like political program, which may be great, but I don't want to sign up for it. I won't care about restorative justice. I want to hear the hogwash for 12 weeks, right? By the time I got out of my circle, saw it completely differently. And I thought, okay, look, an eye for an eye. Okay, let's start with that. An eye for an eye. I lost my eye. I would like my eye to be restored to me. Justice is in me getting back what I had lost. I'll take that. Plucking out your eye and putting it on the floor did not do anything for my eye. It may be fun and I might be okay with it, but I still need my eye. And that's the restorative part. I need my psyche. I need my psyche. I need to be able to live my life without being dominated, just like trying to survive a sea of coping. And there's a path. There's healing is available. Healing is healing for something. The something it's for is my life. You know, that's what I care about. So I would say I care about my fellow green circlers and I care about reaching them and saying it does not have to be like this. It does not have to be like this. You can find healing. You can find yourself. And I think about punishment and all these things. I'll hand you the microphone. But there's a famous book by sociologist Michel Foucault, right? And he talks about punishment. There's two things. Homo sapiens, just been talking. I mean, we got this strong community element. We have to have ways, we have to develop ways to keep together and that in a community. And we have this strong individualistic element to humanity, to Homo sapiens, our existence. The carceral system, what do you do? How do you stop people robbing banks? What do you do? All that stuff great. Great. Societies have to do that. They'll figure something out, whatever. Restorative justice is about the kid. It's about the person. It's about getting that eye back. That would be what I would, I'm not going to get an argument about circles or soft. I would just get in like, well, what do you want to accomplish? Is it great? Have you met a lot of people after they got out of the can for 15 years? Does it seem like they're ready to make positive contribution to society? The ones that survived? You happy with it? When we concoct our public policy, do we have an agenda? Do we have plan? Do we have goals? Do we think about it? Or do we just like hitting on people on the head with a stick when they do something that's momentarily out of fashion? Crimes come in and out of fashion. Anyway, there's a microphone. That's my answer to your question. Sorry.
No, I appreciate it. Jacqueline, same question for you.
Yes.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So here's another imagery that I created. And so I knew his favorite foods though that would make him happy. So I wasn't in it as a child, I was not interested in punishment or suffering. Like never wanted people to suffer. Like, so to me that to give mixed messages, the levels of suffering, then who decides how much someone suffers, and so that piece there. And then so also, but in the bathroom is where the shaving cream was, and when I smell the shaving cream, that's going to be a good day because he's going to go out and he's getting groomed to go and be with his buddies. So that's going to be a good day. And then in the living room, I knew his favorite shows. After resting on the couch and having some sleep, he was much happier and laughed a lot. So I have that experience. I saw that, witnessed that of the individual as well. And then, okay, so in my bedroom, that was not a safe place. However, the place where I sang songs, he loved hearing me sing the songs and would compliment my singing of the songs. And went beyond that. I love Mahalia Jackson. And this individual that I'm speaking of, new people, new recording artists, and had connected me with one. That is a big deal. So the carceral system isn't gonna basically, I don't feel would consider those things. And if anything, we would be removed from such opportunities. It would really put a lot of division. And that would impact my vision and my dreams and my goals. And I've created this for myself, though. So you see, there's red, but there's a lot of green there as well. And so then my last section is I I was happy to see the times he was getting dressed again, going to visit his family, who loved him, who was getting dressed to go to work, who put the family on Santa's Christmas list. And we went to the job for the big party. And I got a lot of great things. And I'll say the last thing like that with the carceral system. So how do you say to the carceral system, and it would absolutely get worse if I were to say, yeah. And there was one time that individual connected me with a friend that knew that I was having an acute asthma attack, but said to me, um, they would give me an inhaler if I would perform sexual favors. So, where would that fit? Where would that fit in? Or would there be like this expression of disgust, like, I can't believe this guy. I can't believe this. I can't believe the mom didn't. And like that passing and the blaming stuff, I already knew that as a child. Nobody could tell me. I already knew that it was going to make things much more deeper. But one thing I knew when I looked back at my green, I know my mom is going to get that medication so I can hold on a little longer. But I couldn't bear that system they're talking about with those concrete steps. I constantly think about concrete steps, the iron metal eagle on the wall, on the flagpole, folks standing in uniforms, they're armed, they're guarded, they don't smile, they don't say good morning, they don't, and I don't, and I'm remembering the walls in the hospital that had friendly faces and cartoons, and the nurses were really attentive and caring, and they give you jello. But in the court, no, you're not going to get jello. You're not going to get it. So that was, I knew that young and very, very early. I did. Thank you.
No, thank you. It's yeah. I could say a lot about the carceral system, but what I'm going to do is actually pivot to so we've talked a little bit about, your survivor stories, a little bit of your healing journeys, and some of the restorative justice practices. Um, I would love, because both of you are artists in, some overlapping ways, some, and then some very different ways. So Ben, maybe we could start with you because you have, multiple books. You have a one person show, you have a memoir. Can you talk a little bit about art in your healing journey?
Yeah, thank you. I, you know, I have memories of, putting on little like shows for my folks when I was 5 or 6. I did drama when I was a kid, in middle school and high school, loved it. Aside from circles, any little drama, you know. Gen X drug using, wildly antisocial drama club that I did was a place I fit in a lot. The mm, the trauma, complex PTSD, that kind of thing, it just kind of piled up on me. And by the time I was out of high school, I I kind of I knew that maybe I should get on a bus and go to LA or get on a bus and go to New York or something. I didn't do it. Tr you know, I didn't do it. And I've castigated myself a lot for that. Now I look back at that kid and say, look, don't give yourself a hard time, Johnson. You did your best. Maybe 10 years ago, I was at a kind of wheels kind of fell off my life and I just started writing and it felt better. It was biofeedback. I did not write or do anything else. Started writing maybe 10 years ago. It kind of felt better and I felt a little relief, like lancing a boil, but that was it. And it's been 10 years. Writing is kind of something teaches you to do it. Personality disorder. I can write the book. I've got audiobooks. You can buy them on Audible, on Audible, a graphic designer for the cover, all that stuff. But for at least a couple of them, I did literally zero to try to get anyone to buy them because they run into narcissism and I can't, and shame and like a vaporized self-concept. I can't put myself out there and like let people actually see me. But I could feel that was happening. I'm like, I'm not going to go to my grave without busting a gut to put myself to go forward. So I did this one man show at the Fringe Festival in LA last year, and it was a real life altering experience. And I thought, I'm just going to start putting stuff up on YouTube and TikTok at Trail to the Western Lands, all lowercase. The My target audience is for people who don't know that they don't have their life doesn't have to suck so hard. Adult child sex abuse is people that I think of it as a war zone childhood. You grow up in like a war zone and your psyche just adapts to that specific war zone. Gender, racial, sexual harm, physical harm, an actual war. You're an adult, you got to live with that psyche. That's kind of my audience. I try to talk to that. I try to kind of talk to that. Is that an answer to your question?
Yeah, no, it's great. Thank you. And I can relate to a lot of what you said. And I would say the desire to be seen is a necessity and also can be incredibly terrifying, especially if you've been through a lot of trauma. So for anyone who's listening to this panel and you hear that, it is a human thing to want to be seen, and we encourage you to find a way to be seen in whatever way feels comfortable for you. Jacqueline, I'm going to turn to you. Would you share about your art and your healing?
Yeah, thank you. So the interesting thing is I put together another visual. One of my experiences, one of the individuals that harmed me via CSA destroyed a piece of my artwork. Um,
Mm.
and I had worked on it. That was one of the ways that I did a lot of like self-management, self-regulation, or creatively expressing myself. And I came back to pick it up, and it was gone. My drawing, and I searched around and asked, did anyone see it? No one saw it, and I went to throw something in the trash, and there was my art. And the response was, I thought it was trash. So that was decades ago. And that has had a lasting imprint on me. And I just moved away from it. But art found its way back to me. And more recently, art became like my respiratory system. I say it that art took over my respiratory system, that I could breathe again.
Mm.
And so I picked that back up, and that art that was thrown in the trash, I thought about it in terms of like it ending up in the landfill, and it ending up, I had a swan pillow that I made, and it was destroyed. And I thought about my art being in the landfill, and I thought about how my magic markers, my magic paints, the colors stirred in the ground. It stirred the soil, and it stirred up the ancestors. It stirred up my
Oh,
ancestors. ancestors.
I
So
love that.
I rewrote that story and it stirred up my ancestors. And the way I think about this, using my imagination, is that the stirring of the magic markers, the ancestors, really is bringing about this restorative work, bringing about this land restoration, bringing about the land acknowledgments. And that's the way I like it. And I like to think of it that I contributed to that. And it was my art, and it was the ink, and it was the paint, and it was all the stuff that I used, but my magic markers that really brought forth the ancestors to work and on our behalf. And so from all of that, I've done a lot of theater that I didn't seek out. And the truth is, as a CSA survivor, I had a lot of like challenges, my own self-worth and confidence. Didn't think I was good enough for anything, or didn't think that um, that I for art. So, or that my art wasn't good enough. So I recently picked that back up, and I I chose to do a dissertation on adult criticism of children's art. And that seems to be the lasting imprint that has on adults' life, is how an adult criticized their art. If they don't remember anything else, they can remember that moment. So I'm doing a lot of work around that, and doing it for repair, wanting repair, and those who have done that, who have criticized a child's art, to give opportunities and avenues for them to do some restorative work with that. And also another way that I've done things with art, times I was having an asthma attack, and being CSA abused, I would use my imagination. And my imagination, like as I'm wheezing in difficulty breathing, I imagine that I'm hearing children outside playing, that I'm hearing them jump rope, I'm hearing them play ball. And that's really how I left that world of abuse, or that those experiences, those moments, and created a whole different world of being. And I know that I live between those worlds, and I think I still sometimes go in and out of it, and have to bring myself back to the current world. But the imagination was so very powerful, and I saw myself, and I began to just do the art publicly. I have had public places, and I don't think that it's good art. I don't think that, but I challenge myself to, hey, put it out there, put it out there. Someone will, they will like that. Someone is gonna remember their dream. And so that's that space. And then the last thing is, I've created something that of my 13 selves, my 13 different experiences. I have 13 survivor selves, a caregiver, a protector, a dreamer, my spiritual self. Like I have 13, but I've used the moon, to connect those 13 selves to the 13 phases of the moon. And I've created like a lot of like medicine cards, affirmations, like a framework for that. And so I'm really nervous. This is the part that really gets me nervous, because this is the part that has come more alive now. The part that I remember so much the most, and just really wanting to wanting to re- wanting to reclaim that, because I know I was really good at art, but that got interrupted. I know that's what I really wanted to do. So instead, I spent 4 decades. I've, I spent 4 decades working on behalf of people who are experiencing abuse and violence. And because I remembered my experience, but maybe that's not what I really wanted to do. But I did not feel there was any other option than that. So I'm gonna do more art. I'm gonna keep challenging myself to put it out there to be seen, and even when it's ugly, because some art is considered to be and labeled as ugly. So I'm gonna do it even when it's ugly. Um, so yeah, I think I'm gonna stop there.
Thank you, Jacqueline. I know that Amber has put in the chat that we are open for questions. I just want to take a moment to take a breath really quick. And once again, before we move into questions, thank both of our wonderful panelists. There are so many ways in which we can heal that don't involve cages for human beings, especially since what we are talking about really tonight is how do we reclaim ourselves? How do we move forward? How do we heal? How do we do that in community and less about focusing on the other person so much, which is what our carceral system tends to do. So I do have a question if you all are feeling ready for that. Okay, wonderful. So Kim is asking, you've both mentioned creative expression as being healing for you. Could each of you share any other healthy coping tools or skills that you've learned to help you get through the difficult days? Ben, do you want to go?
I would. It's oddly difficult for me to make eye contact with Jacqueline on here and see if she wants to go first or if she wants me to. So, I well, yes, yes is the answer.
Yes.
I
Other
have
hope,
other stuff
other.
that I do.
Yeah.
No, I practice Zen. I have a teacher, and it's a kind of a foolish thing to try to talk about. People ask you what you believe and all that. It's not really about that, but it's a practice. Zen is a stance toward the world and a practice. Each reinforces the other. I what I get from that now, how my life is different now after practicing and kind of building my life around that to a large extent. And first of all, that's kind of step number one for me. Well, that was step number 722 for me, was accepting, which I took from Zen, accepting the reality of my psyche. This is me right here, sitting on my cushion. This is it. I don't have some other life. The past ain't here anymore, and the future doesn't exist. This is it. Trying to change that kept it locked in place,
Hmm.
kept me locked in. When I learned to live a life based on this is me right now, without every last bit of it, and accepted this is me, I'm not going to get something else. It all changed way faster. I don't know if you could stick a sci-fi thing from Black Mirror on my head and like see, I live with BPD and it's noisy in there a lot. I don't know that there would be less, to be honest, but it doesn't bother me. My stance toward the noise in my head, the drives, the feeling of being betrayed, love and pain are absolutely, it's the same thing. They're not even welded together. It's the same love and betrayal and pain. My stance toward that, I can live at peace with that, and it doesn't run my life. That's my answer. That's an answer to that. But it's accepting that there's not going to come. I do not anticipate someday that I'm some other guy. I no longer hope. I don't hope for anything. Hope is a desire for things to be different than how they are. I don't long for the day that I can have a stable, easy romantic relationship with a woman. I know what my history is like with the person who abused me, who lived with BPD. Why would I turn into that guy? First of all, is that guy exist anywhere? I'm just me. That's it. I'll hand you back the mic, and that's the
So
first thing I think
for
about.
our audience's sake, would you tell what BPD is?
No, I'm sorry. Yes, BPD is borderline personality disorder, close cousin to narcissistic personality disorder, and histrionic personality disorder. And there's a bunch of other ones. But the personality disorders, as I think of them, are just. This is just Ben talking. I'm a humanistic. I insist on a humanistic stance toward everything. Personality disorders are the way, scientists talk about the shape of the psyche of damaged kids to me. You know, I've seen enough similarities. You grow up in an environment, you have a psyche that has to deal with whatever it has to deal with, and it can be pretty wild. You have that psyche, it dealt with it. I'm alive, Jacqueline's alive. We got the equipment to survive a certain world. It doesn't help you survive the rest of the world. And depending on how it is, we call that BPD, call it NPD, whatever. That's my answer about that. Just jibber
Thanks.
jabber so much at you. I'm so sorry, Brashani.
No, no, no. This is great, Ben. Thank you. And thank you for hopefully anybody on here who might have a personality disorder diagnosis heard you loud and clear, which is they're just simply explanations for the shape of one's mind as the result of massive trauma. It's usually like at the root of all of those disorders, or labels. Um, Before I go to Jacqueline, really quick, just want to say for anybody who wants to ask a question, please use the Q&A. We have time, so drop in a question to us, and I'm going to toss it over to Jacqueline about other healthy coping tools or skills that you might be able to offer.
Thank you. So I do a whole lot of reflecting. I consider that to be spiritual. A lot of reflection, a lot of self-examination, a lot of walking the path. I've recently revisited some of my neighborhoods where I lived at. Those things were happening, and I wanted to rewalk that path. I wanted to rewalk the ground. I do a lot of walking bare feet. I do a lot of like writing. I love so much research, and in research I just find so many different worlds. So I travel and explore the world through various many modalities. I love road trips too. I've done those a lot. And I think one of the ones that is so very powerful, and I think I want to share it, is that songs do a lot, and it allows me to connect, like the connectivity on it. Like I'm really big on connectivity, and there are people like that I greatly admire, legend legacy legends, and one of them I mentioned earlier, being Mahalia Jackson, and each time I think of her, I sing songs of hers, and one of them I performed at the Apollo Theater in New York, and that was a very challenging moment where my music was destroyed. And I taped over it. We had the cassette tapes, and I taped over that by mistake. And I said to myself, like, how am I going to get out of this? What are the solutions for it? So I'm saying and sharing that to say, like, as a survivor, like, I'm not without any solutions. I am so full of solutions and full of resources. And the thing is, the need is to platform to share it, for others to also like to expand and to widen the resources or the healing modalities and the various ways of doing that. So I think I'm going to close out this piece of the question. And thank you for the question. One of my favorite songs, I'll sing two lines of it. I think I'm feeling my strength right now. I'm feeling my strength. And as today, I'll say this, that I have bought a new bedding set. And I could not get it out the package to put on my bed. I was in a place of I could not move forward. And I know a lot of that has to do with CSA, moments or times or reflections, I'll say. And today was the day I was able to put it on there. And like, so I'm saying that for like something that is beautiful, for self-care, for caregiving for self. I'm looking at it and it looks so beautiful right now. And so I was able to be unstuck, or like we would say, writer's block. But like decorating, I love decorating stuff. And I've had decorator's block for really, really for decades. But now today, I think this is a great moment. And I looked at uh, I looked at, uh, hmm, I looked at the phase of the moon, and I think it's something brighter is coming or more light is coming. I think that's what today's moon phase mean. So I do that a lot, like the nature. I spend a lot of time with nature, and want to reflect on what the trees and reflect on birds. I'm hearing a lot of birds sing right now. So I'm just going to do this part. I'm going to live the life I sing about in my song. Yes, I'm going to stand for right and always shun the wrong. If I'm in a crowd, if I'm alone, I'm on the streets or in my home. I'm gonna live the life I sing about. I'm gonna walk the life I talk about. I'm gonna live the life I sing about. Yes, in my song. Yes, in my song. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Uh, this is great. We still have a little bit of time. We have a couple questions. So, Maylee sharing a little bit about her journey with us, and then she has two questions. So, thank you both for sharing your experiences and healing journeys. As a survivor of intrafamilial child sexual abuse, including abuse that was never formally acknowledged and in many ways actively denied by those who caused the harm, I have two questions. First, how do you navigate relationships with family members today? Personally, I do not believe that no contact is the right path for me, but I also no longer want to deny or minimize my own experiences in order to make others feel more comfortable. Let's start with that one first. Um, and I can ask which of you would feel, who wants to take that? Do you both want to respond? Open forum.
I would say the when we open the circle at there's my camera. When we open the circle, and thank you for the question, Maylee, really. We read a statement about the philosophy of hidden water, and one of the sentences in there addresses this because it's a real thing. And we say at Hidden Water, we honor the fact that we're each walking our own path with regard to how we relate to the people that caused us harm and our families. We honor the fact that some of us choose not to have contact with people that cause us harm or our families. And we honor the fact that others of us choose to work toward a healed relationship. And I was talking with my fellow circle keepers, and my circle I did just finished up. We said, how about option three? Those of us that just have to live with the messed up, mutated, mutant mess of a thing and make work our way. I'm not working toward a healed relationship. It's not, it takes two to tango. You know, they can't do that. So if we were just pals, Maylee, I would tell you, just Ben Johnson talking ain't no right answer. Or rather, whatever answer is right is the one that brings you a feeling of peace and leads you toward learning and becoming who you are and leads you away from giving your neck to vampires, which is what it's like for me. They don't get my blood anymore, but only because I know how to fend them off. They're alive, they're elderly, and they don't get my blood anymore, and it's very sad because they want it. You know, that's my purpose in life is to regenerate blood, but I'm not giving anymore. That's my response.
Thanks, Ben. How about you, Jacqueline? Do you have any thoughts for this wonderful attendee?
Thank you for the question. It has allowed me to see what is happening in my body, and in my nervous system. And I just saw that I'm sitting on the edge of my chair. I'm tensed in my body, my shoulders, and I had to relax, put it like I'm conscious and aware now. So that says a lot. So I'm pushing back off of the edge of my chair right now.
That's perfect. Great. We do have a couple other questions. So I'm thinking as we get close to the end of the session, if we could maybe kind of touch on these questions. So keep our answers brief so that we can try to get through the rest. Maylee's second question, Ben, I'll start with you. How do you find a sense of acknowledgement and accountability within yourself when many survivors have never received accountability, recognition, or remorse from the people who've harmed them?
Yeah, because I found everything that I need was in myself. I learned the hard way that other people could not validate anything about it. They don't have my validation. They can't give it to me. They don't have anything of mine. They can't give me anything. They can't take it. They can't give it. It's mine. This is what and my answer to that.
Yeah, that resonates with me as a fellow person in recovery. Jacqueline, how about you? How do you find a sense of acknowledgement and accountability within yourself?
Um, I I find that by thinking about the power of autonomy, and that's something that I've also recently worked on. And I put it in terms of like the 13 moons, and my autonomy. I choose when I am seen. I choose worlds beyond what happened. I choose what guides me. I choose what I no longer carry. I deserve safety without surrendering myself. I choose repair without abandoning my needs. I choose connection. I choose complexity over reduction. I choose my own timing. That's really big. I choose access. I live with auditory processing disorder as a result of hearing loss. And I have really had to be my own advocate and learn how to do that for myself and to be accountable to myself to express what I need without apology. And I choose expression in my own language. And lastly, I choose to trust my own experience. And then those are ways how I hold myself accountable.
Beautiful. Okay, Shauna has asked, what would you want policymakers, advocates, or the public to understand about healing that they often miss? I love this question, Shauna. Thank you. Ben, would you want to take that first?
And hard to answer. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you don't know nothing about nothing. Like, let's start with the fact that people have psyches and happiness, and it's about human life. I mean, if our people elected folks would start with that, we might have a shot. My impression is that very few. Let's just stick with the elected folks. Very few elected folks have any sense of anything about how actual human beings work. So don't screw it up. Don't try to improve it and leave it alone and forget you ever heard about it, would be what I would say to elected people about what survivors need. Please don't try to help. But
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't have a, I don't, it's about people. It's about people and a community to fit in. What we're missing is a community that, to wrap itself around people that have harm. That's what we're missing. Come up with
yeah,
that.
yeah. Thank you, Ben. How about you, Jacqueline? Is there something that you would want to say to policymakers, advocates, or the public about healing that you think they miss?
Yeah, I think accessibility, like there's a lot of assumptions that people can access what exists. That's a big one, I think. Accessibility. Also, maybe um, the cultural piece that comes with accessibility, um, and the paper, like, let's see, templates or like the paper, where there needs to be more space or room for considering neurodivergency, considering disability, considering like survivors knowing what they need. Like all that I've did today, there's no system I can go to and be considered like you've worked a plan, we've worked a plan, or I know what I need. Like really, that would be considered like extra or extracurricular, or put that on your Christmas list or your wish list. That wouldn't be like readily available and accessible. Like, could I go into my counselor or counselor's office or an organization and say, hey, you know what? I really feel like I need to sing this song. Will you listen to me? Can you make space for that? Or can I just stand and I want to just do some, you have paintbrushes and without it being like, oh, you have to go to the art department or you have to
Yeah.
go, call the art therapist. You know
Yep.
what? So like making it more common places is what I really feel is missing. So survivors such as myself isolate ourselves because we don't want to have to go through the burden of explaining and
Yeah.
getting people to believe us and the trust. And I'm also reading if you accepting me or if you think I'm over dramatizing or fabricating, or are you trusting that I'm saying this is what I need in this moment? So it's not
Yeah.
a cookie cutter. Yeah.
No, no, for sure. The systems are built to try to detect like what's really happening versus, versus that there's a lot of pain and that there's a lot of healing that needs to happen, and maybe we don't need to really understand it and pathologize it. We can just like do some healing work together. Okay, we have a question from Kim, who's back with us. If you don't think the carceral system is the answer for those who have caused harm, what does a survivor need for a person who's caused them harm to do or experience? What would be healing? What does accountability look like if it does not look like punishment? Who wants to go first?
I can go first this time.
Yeah, please do.
And I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about, okay, so if it's not the concrete steps and the iron ego, then what is it? And I saw like a community centered place where there is no like there's no steps to go up. It's just a flat like loft like style, and that I could be witnessed. I could be witnessed by community. Um, that would be there, and sitting in front of the 13 people and me directly saying, you did this. And I would be safe and protected. There would be a check in with me. So, how did that go after you stood in front of everyone and said, this happened? Like, that's what I really wanted. Let me say it. Let me tell the person. Let me tell them about the impact. Let me tell them about that time I was suffering and I couldn't get medication and I had to just suffer and wait for my mom. Let me tell them about the time I went to church and I was scared to go in there by myself because what happened with the pastor. I want to be able to tell them these things, all these 13 people. I want them to hear me say from my mouth, not be represented by an attorney, not be represented by I don't want that. No, you can have your places, but you're there to witness me and my what I have to say. And that is the big thing. And to me, that is more like saying, this is what you did. This is the impact that it had. And here's my community that's here with me and behind me. That's what I think versus the carceral system.
Thanks, Jacqueline. Ben, how about you?
The this came up about the last question. I calmed down for a minute and thought, well, the only thing I could really imagine is if there was something with those children who come to the attention of, you know, the authorities in some kind of way, if they had some kind of way to be connected with other survivors to kind of normalize and de-shame before they get a chance to really lock in that coping mechanisms they're going to take 30 years to get to undo, would reach somebody probably. Um, yeah. This what was this question has disappeared out of the chat box, or maybe you already answered it.
I can repeat it for you though.
Oh,
I think
I
Jason
see it
moved it
here.
for
I see
us.
it.
Yeah, do you got it?
I see
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. What? I mean, this is different than what Jacqueline said because she covered that ground. I would just say, I don't. That's a question. I would say, let's let's focus on healing and moving forward and we'll think about what to do to the bad guys later on. Like that'll work itself out, but let's focus on you and moving you down the healing path. It would be what I would think was my experience in circles is that it's the healing work, when people learn and become who they are and they start being able to live their own lives. When you're busy living your own life, there's a lot less mental real estate that goes toward what's going to happen. And that gets wrapped up in the aisle of facing the rage, the anger, and you know, that's my response. That's what comes up for me when I read that question. to do it how we do in circle sharing. I don't know if that's an answer or not. That's what I got from
No, it's an answer. And if I could, I'd like to add my own answer to this because this comes up a lot for me. I'll share a quick story. Um, the work that I do is I work in policy on extreme prison sentences and trying to create opportunities for people to be seen as like actual rehabilitated individuals to come home after talking 20, 30, 40 years of being incarcerated because we send people to prison for life. And I was sharing this with a new coworker of mine because she asked me what I do. And suddenly she revealed to me with very strong emotional reactions that somebody very close to her had been murdered 14 years ago. And she had a very strong visceral response to even what I was saying. And I just said to her, oh, well, we do restorative justice too and whatnot. And it was this powerful moment where she stopped and she looked at me and she said, I've heard about that, but I don't think I could ever do it. And I was like, oh, what's holding you back? And she got really upset and she said, I remember the smirk on his face in the courtroom. And I think he would just smirk at me while I'm sitting there in pain. And and I said, well, the first requirement of restorative justice is that he's ready to be accountable. And she stepped back and she said, oh, so it wouldn't happen if he wasn't ready? Like he wouldn't get to be able to attack me and harm me further, right? That's what I heard her saying. But he's going to attack me and harm me further. That was what her fear, like what is holding her back. And so when people talk about accountability, what does it look like? I always say when I survived my situation, I wanted accountability, but most importantly, I wanted him to change. And that second part, Ben, I think you just touched on, which is that's not in my hands, right? And how we talk about that is not up to me. But what accountability for me would have looked like was what Jacqueline said, which is I wanted to sit with him and say, do you understand how you impacted my life? Do you understand how scared you made me? Do you understand that I don't sleep anymore? That all of the things, right? And just have him there to hear and witness that. Um, so anyway, I'm adding my answer to that question because I think we are now in that place finally as a society and a culture where we want to look for alternatives to just a lifetime of punishment, and we're looking for healing instead, or like collaboration with, if that's what's required. But okay, now I talked for a long time. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Amber's coming on. Oh, Jacqueline wanted to add something, please.
I just want to add one thing. I would also want to hear their trauma story. I would want to hear what have you experienced.
Yes.
And I think that for me is part of the deal. For lack of a better term, I can't think of any other word right now, but I would want to hear what has your experience been? Where were you harmed? I want to hear that. I want to know that as well. As far as what I think I need, not to, I don't know what goes after that, but I think I would want that.
Thank you so much, everyone, for this wonderful conversation this evening, for showing up and being so vulnerable and sharing all that you have to offer. I did not know we were getting a concert and a poetry reading and some comedy from Ben, and it's been such a pleasure. So we are going to wrap up our time together. We are at time. And I just want to remind everyone who has joined us this evening or who watches this later that Restorative Action Alliance does operate as a nonprofit organization. So if you love this program and you would like to support the work, you can support at restorative actionalliance.org. I also want to mention just 2 programs that Restorative Action Alliance has. That is, we do have circles, peer support circles as well, and we do have a survivor circle as well as circles for people who are impacted by the system or who have caused harm. And then finally, I want to wrap up by mentioning, because we talk so much about creative expression and also this idea of breaking down these ideas of us and them, that we do have a program called Many Truths, which is a creative expression program where people submit their creative work. And we're very thrilled to be doing that again this year. You can find information on restorative-actionalliance.org. And we are accepting submissions of artwork, photography, poetry, and we will be accepting audio files this year as well. And so that culminates in the fall in a online gallery opening, and you can currently go to the Restorative Action Alliance website and see last year's opening and the gallery that includes all of the wonderful works from last year. So I want to call attention to the fact that both Jacqueline and Ben have put their information in the chat. Actually, I see it on the host and panelists, so we need to move that over to everyone. So if Ben and Jacqueline, if you could make sure that you have everyone clicked on that too, and then put that information.
Can't do everyone.
You can't do it. Okay, I will do it. All right. So with that, let me just copy that information. There's Jacqueline, and then Ben.
I am going to add the exact link.
There we go. All right, so there is their information, and we encourage you to check out Brashani's organization, Drop LWAP New England, as well. All are doing exceptional work, and we are so happy to partner with all of you here at Restorative Action Alliance. And with that, we will say goodbye to everyone for the evening until next time.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.